Hello, lovelies. Welcome to the live catch-up of episode 28 of the Get It Done podcast with me, Michelle Gregory. I'm very excited to be here with you guys on a Thursday to follow the episode that came out on Tuesday. So, for those of you who haven't been before, I'm going to talk about the episode itself. And if you haven't already followed the podcast, you can find it on Spotify, Apple, and pretty much all of them actually. I think at this stage, just search Getting It Done. We should come back to. Hey Julie, welcome my dear. Yeah, so this week I'm going to talk a little bit about that, so you can ask any questions you want about it, and let me know anything at all. And also I'm going to show you what I'm knitting and what I'm going to be my new yarn. I bought yarn. Yay, very excited. Well, yes I did. I've been looking for a yarn for a while and I finally found one and I wanted to. But also, if you are listening, I would love to know what you would like to see on the podcast and hear in the live as well. I can add extra stuff here that is no use, I think, in an audio podcast. So my dears, I'm going to get started and talk a little bit about the podcast episode this week. So the title of the podcast was, when was the last time you focused on your knitting? And the reason that I was talking about that is because this year I have been trying to get more focused. So I can be a bit of a flipperty-gibbet. I can get a bit kind of distracted by things. And this year I promised myself that I would just be focused on what I was doing. And it's working quite well. I'm trying to get a lot more done with my time. Because I'm full-time self-employed, so I should get lots done. It's not like I work full-time doing another job and then do my business on the side. So I should get plenty of things done. But I feel like I could do more. So that's why I was reading the book Hyperfocus by Chris Bailey. Now, I didn't expect it to be relevant to knitting, but it kind of was. So it's kind of a useful book from a lot of perspectives, mostly for kind of bringing myself back, like, come back to me, Michelle, when I'm doing stuff. There's a couple of things in the book, like there's a lot in it. Some of it is really obvious. And I don't mean to be mean to the author of the book, because it's quite, like, it's a useful book that gave me loads of thoughts, but some of it is very obvious. But then, you know what? Sometimes being taught really obvious things is actually really important too, because it's a good reminder. You know, you take things you know for granted. Same as in knitting, you think, oh, of course. When you hear a new thing that someone says, you think, that is so obvious. And then you're like, oh, great thing that I heard it again. Actually, I'd love to know if there are things that people have heard recently in knitting and thought, oh my god, that's so obvious, but you didn't remember it, or you'd forgotten you knew it, or you never knew it at all. So a couple of things in the book that really struck me was, the first thing was talking about coming off autopilot and kind of making sure you knew what you were paying attention to. And I think that struck me for knitting for two reasons. One, I knit on autopilot all the time, which means that the projects I choose to knit have to be possible on autopilot. It means that, like, my knitting time is in the evenings when I'm finished work, like a lot of people, and I mean, my brain is tired. But I could also sit down on a Saturday and knit for a few hours, and actually I could knit mindlessly, but that might be a good time for me to swap something else in that I don't need to operate on autopilot, because I have more brain space. I'll talk about that in a minute, because that was probably the most important thing I thought he said in the book. And then the second part of it was not only that about autopilot, but also paying attention to what you pay attention to. I thought that was really neat. And it was, what do I pay attention to? You know, do I pay attention to any of what I'm doing a lot of the time? And I thought I liked that, because I don't always pay attention to what, you know, you get distracted. I find myself picking up my phone. I find myself changing projects actually a lot. Like, that's how I knit socks. I knit 10 rows of one, 10 rows of another, 10 rows of this. And actually I've allowed myself to kind of be distracted, and I liked that a lot, because it was like, it means I now think a bit more, not perfectly obviously, that'll never happen, about what I'm paying attention to. And I think for knitting that's kind of important. It's like, oh, actually I haven't paid attention to the projects I've been choosing recently, because I've just been choosing socks. So it gives me no space for learning anything new or knitting anything exciting, or kind of that needs a little bit more brain power. So I thought that was good. Then the thing he said then in the next piece was the limits of your attention. Attention is like a set amount of size, and it depends on who you are. Probably depends on what age you are as well, or kind of how your brain works generally. But for me, I only have a certain amount of attention that I can give any one thing, and the more things that come into your attention, the more you are not focusing on the thing that you're doing on. And I'm really guilty of this, in that. And actually, the best thing is he's like, it's why when you are driving in a car, you will turn down the radio. And it's not because you need to be able to hear better, it's because you don't need to be dividing your attention between looking for something and hearing something. And he said that you have maybe enough room for a number of habitual tasks, but you might only have room for 2 habitual tasks and 1 medium-sized task, or you might have only enough space for 1 complex task. And I really like that because I tend to do only small things. So I'm watching TV and I'm knitting and I'm probably talking to Simon and I'm probably eating something or petting a cat. But if I wanted to knit like a complicated lace pattern, which is kind of where I suppose, what is the complicated sweaters. I want to knit more sweaters this year. I'm still going to need to pay more attention to them, or I want to knit colour work or detail things. And if I don't fill my whole attention with those, I'm either not going to be able to do them, or I'm just going to make ridiculous mistakes. I nearly said something there that'll make this less than PG-12. So I thought that really struck me, because that's true of almost everything that I do, that my attention is always split. So I have done a few adjustments to that. Then he talks about how to get into it, and it's very obvious. Pick something you really enjoy, like knitting, yes. And then keep bringing yourself back to it was the most important thing, because I hadn't ever really done that. I never thought, I must bring myself back to what I'm paying attention to. You know, you get distracted and you just go off, but actually you bring yourself back. You're like, come back to me. I'm like, instead of following the goldfish, follow the light back to the work. And I like that from a work perspective as well, because even as I was editing the podcast on Monday, I picked up my phone and I was like, why are you picking up your phone? I was like, you're supposed to be editing the podcast. And I was like, oh, so particularly when you're knitting, putting your phone away is quite a good idea, if you can. And I talk about that a lot in the podcast. And then he goes on to talk about taming distractions. A lot of this is very obvious, but when was the last time you actually focused on removing the distractions, or even making a list of them and knowing what they are? So, because like, first thing you should know is, what are they? So for me, I thought, oh, actually it's, sometimes for me, I will do half an hour of work and then I'll do half an hour of knitting, half an hour of work. And I'm like, that is just, there's no point in jumping from one to the other, have an hour of one and an hour of the other. Or just to be fair, for me, it is my phone. I know for other people, it's going to be phone. For some people, it's going to be kids. For some people, it's going to be TV. For some people, it's going to be the fact that you have to have the radio on all the time. And all of those take away from your attention. And for some people, a lot of people say, I can't learn this technique because I'm not very good at it. And a lot of the time for knitting, it's actually because you're not giving it your full attention. And that's the cruel truth of some techniques, and those techniques will vary for everybody. So for example, I can now brioche in front of the TV, but I couldn't until I spent time learning brioche, and now I can do it in front of the TV because it has become more rote. And I think that's the idea, is that if you spend enough time with all your attention on it, eventually you'll be able to do it in situations where you're able to kind of knit by rote. And I thought that, I really like that. And then he talks about making it a habit. And I think for me, this is the toughest one, because I'm like, oh, it's so easy to sit down and just knit socks. And also, knitting is like something you do for, well, pleasure mostly. Sometimes it varies actually why we all knit. I must ask that question, is why do people knit? Like, I definitely knit for relaxation. I knit because I love it. I love the rhythm of knitting. I don't even have to be making anything, which is why socks kind of work a lot for me. So you don't want to do it like it's a work task. Go, right, I'm going to focus on this. But you know, sometimes if you want to learn something new and you keep telling yourself you can't, then actually focusing on it is a good idea. And then that was the whole idea about making it a habit. But also, when you are making it a habit, only do it in enough time to coax yourself into it. Is do it for just a small amount of time at the start. So maybe you say, right, I'm going to knit socks all day, but for half an hour or an hour, I'm going to focus and learn something new. And I'm going to just step slightly, you don't have to go straight from sock knitting to hap knitting. So it's not like I'm going to suddenly start producing like cobweb lace, cobweb weight Shetland shawls, but it might mean that I spend a little more time on sweaters. And actually I do have one coming up, so I'm very excited. So that was the podcast episode. I hope it's not too preachy. I just thought it was the book struck me as very interesting, but lightweight enough to not be too complicated. I have to say, I don't like my business books too difficult. Not difficult. I like them nice and lightweight so that they're easy to listen to while you're doing other things. she says, mostly knitting, and then easy to kind of do something with. I don't need like War and Peace, the business edition. Although actually I have to say I have started listening to War and Peace. We're still in the drawing room and it's been a while. We might be in the drawing room for quite a while. It opens in a drawing. I think it opens at a party or something. Anyway, that's one of those things where you're like, I should really listen to this because everyone says it's worth listening to, but I don't know if I have the attention span for 55 hours of War and Peace. I might have to listen to it at 1.2 speed. Anyway, that's a separate thing. How much knitting could you do to War and Peace? Actually, that might become like my challenge for this year. So yes, you could definitely knit a sweater, I imagine. So yeah, that's what the podcast was. Next week, I am talking to the awesome Pippa of Pip's Rainbow. It's an episode we recorded last summer, but obviously I vanished off the face of the planet for a while. But now I have the episode ready and it's super nice. Pippa is awesome and I'm really excited to have her on for the next edition of Desert Island Knits. After that, I'm going to be talking about should you turn your hobby into a business, the long promised episode. So I'm covering that. I was supposed to do it in the Loveliest Yarn Company closure episode, but actually I promised and didn't deliver, so I'm going to do that again as an episode. And then after that, there'll be more knitting chat. There might be some show chat. And I'd love to know what people would like, because I was doing a little bit of I was looking at what people are listening to on other podcasts, and I have to say the style of some of them isn't my style. I think I kind of like a bit of mix of everything, which is why I kind of brought you this live one. So that's enough chatter about that though. So yeah, next week's live is not going to be with Pippa, sadly, but I might do a technique instead. I might do a crochet technique. Well, I might not. But I'll probably I'll talk about what we talked about, myself and Pippa, but I'll talk about some other stuff as well. Now, the piece that's only on the live, I'm going to show you what I bought yarn-wise this week. Well, last week. I am knitting Anakin Alice's Cadson top as part of the March Knit Along for Knit School. I'm very excited. I can't wait to knit. I haven't knit myself a top in ages, and I am knitting it in this yarn. The light isn't great, but it's a dark grey. It's kind of a charcoal. It is the West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite 4-ply, 80% wool. I think it's merino. It is Falklands merino. Oh, it's Falkland wool now. I wonder, is it Falkland merino? It's wool. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And it is 20% mulberry silk, so it is a lovely yarn. Will it stand up to a lot of wear? It's got a high enough twist in it. I have samples in the lace weight and I'm pretty confident it'll be grand. It is 30 hand wash, which is fine. It's a lightweight over top rather than anything else. It's got a lace panel at the front, diamond sleeves, quite a large amount of ease, so I'll be doing some needle adjustments, I'd say, to make it a little bit smaller, and maybe some kind of less decreases, but I can talk about that another time. The other yarn I bought is this yarn. Now I have to admit I bought this from Lovecrafts. Now I prefer to support small independent wool shops, but this yarn I cannot find anywhere else. I've been looking for so I love knitting socks with alpaca. It's very difficult to find a alpaca nylon blend anywhere, actually, to be fair. I don't even think that, so the 4-ply, I don't even think that like Chester Wool or any of the big companies, they don't carry that particular blend. It might not be that popular or anything, but I haven't been able to find one. And I used to knit them in Juniper Moon Farm Harriet Fine. Now, it's virtually impossible to get that now because the company that used to distribute it here in the UK called Designer Yarns, they went into administration a number of years ago, and the only way for any of us to stock those yarns was via a company in the US, and by the time you've brought it in, there's no money in bringing it in, and it's not popular enough to do a huge amount of it. But it took me ages to find, and I have now found alpaca sock blend. Really nice for people who are allergic to wool, and also for people who really like soft yarn, really, really soft. So it's very soft. I gave it to Simon, who's like, yeah, that's a very soft yarn. Now, I will tell you how it wears when I knit it into a pair of socks, having just said that I'm going to be knitting less socks. It comes in quite, ordinary colours, but I really love the base. It is 70% alpaca, 30% nylon, so actually it should wear quite well, and I think the 30% nylon is not a bad idea. Lang yarns are normally very nice, but I had to buy it from Lovecrafts because, and you know what, there's nothing wrong with them as a company. I just prefer to support smaller businesses because I want to and I am one, so I prefer to do that. But this I could not buy anywhere else. This I bought from a supplier myself. But yeah, so that's alpaca socks. It's lovely. And I'm really excited to knit with it. I will tell you how it goes. I'm probably going to cast that on this weekend. It's beautiful. It comes in kind of dull colours, but I think it'll make lovely sweaters as well, although very fine. Oh, in terms of meterage, it is $3.90 per 100, so it's actually quite a good solid weight. Like, it's a good solid sock weight that you can knit into I'm going to try it in my Simply the Simplest sock. Might be a bit small, but it'll be nice and dense, and I think for alpaca you want that. I will tell you how it goes, and I'll wear them, and I'll tell you how they wear. They're definitely for me. So that's what I have, just my new yarns. In terms of what's on my needles, not very much has changed since last week. New sock. This is in a Rico yarn I think I picked up in the Netherlands. It's a commercial sock yarn. It's a little bit hairy, but it's nice. It's soft enough. I don't know what the label is. I'm afraid it has vanished. I think it's just a Rico sock yarn that I bought. It was the only yarn I could find to buy in, not in the Netherlands. I bought it in Berlin, actually. In Berlin. It was the only yarn shop I could get to that was close enough. It was right next to the hotel, very handy. But it was just a kind of a craft shop, and that was all they had. And I was like, I gotta buy a yarn. And it's actually it's a nice sock yarn. Again, machine washable. And to be fair, with socks, you don't always have to use a hand-dyed yarn. Like, you can, I like a commercial sock yarn. Particularly when you give them away or you sell them or whatever with socks. This, however, is a very nice sock yarn. And I have a toe, so I'm working up to the toe on that. That's a Peak Districts yarn sock. I think it's a cashmere wool sock blend. I picked it up somewhere. And I still have totally unchanged the Disendet sock. Sorry, I'm so Irish sometimes. In the blue. Still have not moved that on a lot. And I'm not sure why I haven't. Well, I suppose I do know. It's just that I've been going downstairs in the evenings and just knitting around and around and around in circles. I still haven't moved on the shawl that I was knitting, so the changing light, no movement on that. So yeah, that's where I am knitting wise. Hoping to do more adventure knitting though. And then I'm having a moment at the moment where I'm thinking about Unravel this weekend. Simon asked me today, he said, final chance, are we going? And I was like, no, I don't need to go. And then I'm like, every time I see a picture, I saw Dragon Hill setting up, I saw other people setting up, I think Ski and Queen are there at Unravel, and I'm like, oh, I want to go. And then I was like, what do you want to buy? And I was like, I just want to buy sock yarn. I was like, oh, you can't just go and buy sock yarn. I was like, I can. So I'm still debating it. He's at his mom's tonight, and when he comes home, I'll be like, will we? And then I won't know what to do, and then we'll get up on Sunday morning and probably decide to go. Shh, don't tell him. So yeah, that's Unravel this weekend. Very exciting. If you are in the Farnham area, it's a lovely show. There are some great exhibitors there. And yeah, I might go on the Sunday. I'm in two minds. I don't know. Tell me if I should go or not. And I will, if I do, I'll do a blog post review about it, take some photographs and share them. Anything else? That's it from my knitting world. I'm still encouraging you all to do the Knit School quiz, and I will be talking more. So at the moment you'll see me closing the lovely Yarn Company, which is very exciting. I know that some people have said such kind things to me, and when they're placing orders, and you guys are leaving lovely notes, and it's so kind. And a lot of you are a little bit worried. Don't worry, it is just so that I can make space for Knit School and for something that I'm working on with Simon as well. There's just not enough time in the world to do everything well, and I'd like to do Knit School really well, and I have a lot of new stuff coming for it. So yes, once the lovely Yarn Company closes, we're finishing. Last day of shopping is the 28th, although it'll probably run till about 9 o'clock the following morning until I get up and change the sites over. So that's going on, but as soon as that is finished, I'm going to be talking about the virtual retreat that I'm going to be organising. I can't decide if I'll do it in this Facebook group or if I'm going to run a totally new group for it. I'm still to decide. And it will be, you can sign up and you can have, like, there'll be all kinds of bits and pieces, and there's going to be some classes and things to learn and snippets and little tours of Knit School and a few preview bits and pieces. And that'll be coming up at the end of March, and I'll start talking about that as soon as the lovely Yarn Company is closed. Because I'm very excited. I'm really excited to have a lot more time for Knit School now. And I have very exciting changes. And actually, if I have members on with me tonight as well, there is a very exciting thing coming your way. I'm going to say mid-March. Because it's the next stage of the knitting journeys. Because I know that some of you have been waiting for the automated version and it is on its way. But I will talk more about that. I might actually just, very exciting. And so that's it from me. If you are watching this on catch up on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You're in the Facebook group if you're listening to me right now, so thank you for being part of it. And then also do subscribe to the podcast, which you can find at Getting It Done Podcast. Oh, and a little thing, because I know that I know lots of lovely folk who have businesses in the yarn industry as well, and you guys are here with me in the group. If you fancy it, you will find the Entrepreneur Interrupted podcast. It's brand new. The trailer is just up. You will find that on... A little bit harder to find because, as you can imagine, there's 1,001 entrepreneur podcasts. But if you follow me at Digital Creatures Consulting, which is myself and Simon's new thing, you will find the addresses for those on the podcast as well. So that's my brand new podcast. I'll be talking to business people about the mistakes they made in their business and revealing some of my own as well. Oh, don't even. There's a little I'll never run out of episodes if I talk about mistakes I made. But you know what? It's about dusting yourself. It's like knitting, actually. Everything is like that. Every time you make a mistake, you can either sit inside in it. Oh, actually, you can sit inside in it for a while anyway, as long as you get up afterwards and dust yourself off. And I'm really excited to have that as well. So yeah, that's a little pitch for the podcast. Julie, you love the idea. I know, I'm really excited about the virtual retreat. I'm so excited. I have to admit, I got that idea from an amazing woman that I follow. Karen Kasane is her name. She's a business coach, and she ran one recently for businesses, and I was like, oh my goodness, this would be so cool for knitting. I was like, it'd be even most amazing. So do put that in your diaries. I think it's the 20, let me look, I'll get some proper dates so that I can start talking about it. It is the 23rd to the 26th. It'll be here or in a different group, I must decide, but all those details coming from the 1st of March. How is it the 1st of March? Won't talk about that either. Right, my dears, I'm off, and I will see Knit and Natter folk from Knit School at 8 o'clock, and the rest of you I will hopefully see in your inboxes on Tuesday about the next episode of the podcast with the amazing Pippa Amazingness. Take care, my dears. I will see you all really soon.